Hello everybody, welcome to Switch 2020. I'm Ji from NUS Enterprise and I'll be your host for this session. So Innovation Made Real at Singapore Science Park is a joint collaboration between CapitaLand and the Singapore Science Park community builders, NUS Enterprise, Bridge Plus and Co-Space Park to lead our inaugural joint participation at Switch 2020. Through our curated panel discussions, we bring together great minds across the innovation ecosystem to discuss, share, and inspire ideas. So this is one example of cross-collaboration to showcase the Singapore Science Park communities. Today, in this event, Innovation Made Real MedTech in the COVID-19 world. We have distinguished speakers representing Breathonix, Capere, AVATAMED, and Johnson & Johnson. Dr. Mayank Gurnani will be the moderator for this session. So Dr. Mayank is the currently Associate Director at the NUS Industry Liaison Office and Program Head of Jumpstart at NUS. Mayank supports MedTech and Health Tech developments and venture creation through the TAP, LLP, and GRIP programs. At Jumpstart, his team builds sustainable MedTech ventures, collaborating with innovations, technologies, and clinicians. Mayank has close to 2 decades of extensive and specialized research in strategy, biotech startups, entrepreneurships, and academic partnerships. Over to you, Mayank, to introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Ji, and welcome everybody. I know COVID-19 has been some sort of a new change in the environment, but it has also brought great opportunities. And today's panel is an opportunity for us to learn from what have people achieved during this past year. So today, without further ado, let's go straight to the panelists and we'll introduce them one by one. So first we have Prof. R. Prof. R, would you like to say a few words about yourself first?
My main job is in laboratory medicine at the Changi General Hospital, and my other part is to be a seed investor in several companies. Capere Surgical Systems is one of the things that I'm involved in, and we'll share with you what we do this afternoon.
Excellent. So this is a wide-ranging panel, right? Next up, we have Peter from J&J, and it's a contrast from where Capere is. So Capere is obviously a startup, and Peter is one of the bigger companies within the MedTech environment. So Peter, we all know you, but we'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mayank, and good afternoon to everyone. Yes, I'm Peter Hawkes. I have the privilege of looking after business development for Johnson & Johnson Medical Devices across Asia Pacific. So I often get to meet with startups and mature companies that are doing really exciting things in the space of MedTech device, and we should all be proud of what we're achieving here in Asia Pacific, and excited to be here today. So thanks, Mayank.
Thanks, Peter. Next up is Boon, and it's a little bit different from medical devices, so a little bit closer to precision medicine. So Boon, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Mayank. So thank you for the invitation for to this panel discussion. I'm Boon. I'm currently the CEO of AVATAMED. As Mayank mentioned, it's a precision medicine company. I myself personally have experience in a startup for the past 5 to 6 years. My previous company that I work with is in the personalized genetic service company. Great to be here, and also excited to discuss more about the COVID-19, how it affected the MedTech scene. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Boon. So last in the panel, but certainly not the least, is Dr. Zhunan. And Zhunan is a familiar face who people who watch TV and read newspaper, they will see her appearing all the time. But for our benefit, Zhunan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Mayank, for the warm introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Zhunan. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Breathonix. Breathonix is a startup company developing ultra-sensitive breath lasers for disease detection. And we are currently focusing on developing rapid breath tests for mass screening of COVID-19. So before COVID-19, we were developing a breath test for early detection of lung cancer. So our company is working on a range of different diseases, and we plan to further extend our test menus in the future.
Excellent. So as you can see, we have a star panel all through. Let's start with presentations. So during this time, what we'll go through is each panelist will do a small presentation of what they're doing, tell you a little bit about what their immediate actions are, and then maybe that sets the stage for our discussion later on. So first up is Prof. R. I'll ask Prof. R to kindly share his slides and present his slides to us.
Thank you, Mayank. Thank you for joining us this afternoon on this panel discussion. Let me introduce you to Capere Surgical. All right, we are one-stop medical and diagnostic solutions provider, a spin-off from NTU Medical, founded by professors of medicine, surgery, and engineering. And our mission is to restore movement and quality of life to patients, as well as to respond to the challenging COVID times. The flagship Capere hand device allows therapists to measure and monitor patient strength and the rate of recovery. We are also involved in medical consumables and diagnostics. We have Capere surgical masks, which are HSA and ESG approved. And we are also involved in COVID-19 supplies, from gloves, swabs, and testing materials, as well as PCR, antigen, and serology tests. All right. Quickly about our mask. The mask, when we manufacture them, right, they have to be unaffected by flammability and good breathability. But the main ones that people look out for is the filtration efficiency for bacteria, as well as the filtration efficiency for particles, besides how splash resistant they are. So this is the Capere mask that is made in Singapore, right? Make sure you wear them, the correct masks that are at least 99% bacteria filtration efficiency, right? With 3 layers. And this is what it looks like. Now, this is the test of the mask, right? When you acquire some mask, make sure that they show you your test report as well, right? So earlier I told you about the bacterial efficiency, right? You can see that over 5 experiments, right, it's better than 99% filtration efficiency. And microbial cleanliness also meets the requirements for the highest grade, which is 2R. That's less than 16 colony counts per gram, right? So remember, filtration efficiency for bacteria, 99% plus. And we also have splash resistance, which is exceeding the highest grade. For lab supplies, we've got gloves, transport media, swabs for the COVID testing. And in partnership with QIAGEN, we are now able to provide solutions for testing as well. Those that require a respiratory panel containing SARS-CoV-2, large throughput testing for SARS-CoV-2 using PCR. And more recently, the newest product is the rapid antigen and serology testing, which can be done 8 cartridges at one go. We also involved in education. All right, part of our CSR, we have done a session for teachers. And in the future, we are responding to COVID, leveraging on our knowledge base, and preparing ahead for the different spaces that we might encounter, devices to diagnostics, therapeutics, and even services. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Prof, thank you for that presentation. Next, I think we'll invite Peter to a small presentation as well. Peter, I'm sure you have tons to talk about with what's going on in J&J. So please bring us in with what's happening.
Excellent. Thanks, Mayank, and it's great to be here and here this afternoon. So what I want to touch on today, and we don't have a lot of time, but just I want to touch on a couple of examples of where J&J Medical Devices has responded to COVID this year, and particularly here in Asia Pacific. And then just at the end, I might touch on just maybe one or two things of how has the pandemic shaped the future of MedTech going forward. So if we can just move on to the next slide here. So Alice Gorski, CEO of J&J, encourages us as employees to continue to always think like a 135-year-old startup to really drive innovation. And the terrible onset of COVID has given us the opportunity to respond, not only to innovate, but to really think about how do we innovate rapidly to support those most in need. So if we take, for example, here in India, over in India. So earlier this year, India was facing this twin challenge, right? It had a short supply of testing swabs in the market, and also the current pricing they were being charged was being imported at 17 rupees per stick, which is being proven to be inferior and not sustainable. So a solution was fixed in just 7 days, combining the expertise of J&J manufacturing a similar type of product in an earbud, and partners in Reliance and AD Industries, which were able to provide a custom-made polyester staple fibre that resulted in the cost of swabs coming down to just 1.7 rupees per unit. And this is just one example of a number of areas within Asia Pacific that J&J continues to innovate going forward. The next example I wanted to touch on was really our efforts to really supply people with PPE and other areas. So across Asia Pacific this year, J&J has contributed over $7 million in financial aid and product donations to support vulnerable communities and the frontline workers, and supplemented by also our local employees fundraising campaigns. So working in conjunction with local partners such as the Red Cross Foundation in Wuhan in China, the Salvation Army in Korea, the government of Maharashtra in India, J&J has been able to contribute to the provision of masks, protective suits, sanitizers, and care products for healthcare professionals, patients, and communities. So this is a really, really exciting time. Here locally in Singapore, J&J employees got together and said, how can we support what's happening here in Singapore? And they created and distributed over 2,000 tailor-made care packs to frontline healthcare workers here locally. So again, just some other examples of J&J supporting the efforts in its fight against COVID. If we look to really the market, J&J Medical Devices has really taken the opportunity to really leverage digital technology this year. And by expanding the reach and providing, I should say, remote coaching and case support and professional education for operating room staff. The J&J Institute, which is well known to many people, which is a training and learning centre for the healthcare providers, rapidly expanded its education ecosystem online with the development of a new COVID-19 community hub. And online training and webinars were also made possible by expanding the collaboration with the Advances in Surgery platform, again, very well known to a number of surgeons across the globe. So an example of this training happened just in Q1 this year, where we had over 40,000 healthcare professionals attend virtual training sessions held by the J&J Medical Devices Company here in Asia Pacific. So again, just looking at different ways that we can provide professional education without being physically in the room with some of these healthcare professionals. So just turning to J&J staff, so we have really asked our staff to, how do you mobilise our own teams against the fight against COVID-19? And certainly our employees have been hard at work. So J&J has encouraged medically trained employees to donate their time and expertise by joining the ranks of those on the front line to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. And across Asia Pacific, with some countries under significant lockdowns, many J&J medical device employees have travelled long distances amidst blockades to deliver critical equipment for emergency surgeries. So they're just a few examples of what J&J has been doing throughout the year to really support the fight against COVID-19. And again, there are a number of others, but I just wanted to touch on those as they relate here in Asia Pacific. And just finally, I did just want to turn the discussion, and I'm sure Mayank will continue this in the discussion panel afterwards, really around how has the pandemic shaped the future of MedTech. And look, it has shaped it in a number of ways, but I just wanted to touch on just a couple of things in regards to this. So first of all, switching to the future, there's no doubt that the pandemic has left an indelible footprint on the future of MedTech. So even just recently, in February 2020, less than 1% in the US was using telemedicine. By April, it had grown to 43%. 43%. And a recent survey in Asia found this year that 78% of respondents from Asian countries said they were ready to use digital healthcare. So what does this mean? Well, this certainly bodes well for innovative companies looking to leverage the introduction of 5G in MedTech. So we talk about the inclusion of innovation of VR and AR and remote surgeries. This is going to be exciting times going forward. And the unfortunate COVID-19 pandemic may have a silver lining in accelerating this as people get used to digital technology. The second piece is around MedTech and how they look to innovatively deploy education through the use of digital to healthcare professionals and patients. So we're seeing companies more and more accelerate and use virtual selling tools and digital case support, including such as the virtual rep. So where product specialists can't be in the room or in the OR at the same time, they can support the surgeon virtually, which again is exciting and new initiatives that we're seeing across MedTech. And then finally, speaking of virtual, and just close to my heart being in BD and M&A, virtual deal execution has been the new buzzword for MedTech companies and seeking to drive innovation through external partnerships. So, you know, virtual execution, and I've been first-hand experience of this, can offer significant advantages. So certainly including faster timelines, less management time commitment required, can result in significant expenditure savings, not having to fly around many countries to do that. And then of course, improved confidentiality as well. And just an example of this, in Q3 alone in 2020, so the highest M&A volume in history, and 66% of those deals were actually conducted virtually. So again, you know, very exciting times coming out of this very unfortunate year we've had fighting COVID-19. And I look forward to the discussion panel and I hope that just gives a bit of insight into what J&J is doing in this fight against COVID. So thanks, Mayank.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter. Very relevant points. And I think we almost got the discussion sorted with all the points that you have done. I think we'll just go over to Boon and see what's happening on his end. And Boon, invite you to present your slides, please.
Great. Thank you, Mayank. So let me briefly introduce to you what AVATAMED is and also what we have, the technology and also the service that we provide. So AVATAMED is really a precision medicine service company. we have one of the best drug screening technology, which we named the AVATAScan. We aim to give individual patients the most optimal treatment options based on our AVATAScan drug screening technology. And of course, we want to work with pharmaceutical company in drug development to develop personalized drugs. So a bit of history and overview of the company. Yeah, AVATAMED is a spin-off from the Purpose Research Program, which is a global research collaboration between Samsung Medical Center, National Cancer Center Singapore, ASA, and the National University of Singapore. So the technology was developed from more than 10 years of government-funded research. And to date, we have accumulated over 1,600 reference data, drug response data. So how does this work? Basically, in terms of precision oncology services, we are using individual patient-derived cells. So in this diagram, right, basically we are working with hospitals. For example, Suriraj Hospital in Thailand, or Samsung Medical Center in Korea. So basically, oncologists, right, will actually collect the samples during the surgery or biopsy, and these samples, right, from the patient will be processed in our lab, running the drug screening and also genome sequencing. Then, with all this data, we will present a report to the oncologist to suggest which drugs, right, actually are effective for the patient, so that treatment can be applied to the patient. So in terms of clinical feasibility, right, we have demonstrated in Nature Genetics 2018 paper, right, across 4 cancer types, right, that the hit ratio, right, successful prediction is at across the 4 cancer types is at 84.5%, meaning to say that from the report, suggesting which drug is the best for the patient and applying that drug to the patient, the tumor for this patient actually regresses. So this is the drug list, the panel of drugs that we apply on the patient-derived samples in our drug screening platform. A total of 67 drugs in various target and class of drugs. And we have processed samples from 14 cancer types, as can be seen over here. But in fact, actually, any kind of solid tumor samples we are able to process using our AVATAScan platform. So with the drug screening data that we have, and just now we also, I mentioned that we run the genetic data also, and from next year onwards, we will also look into immune profiling of the samples, combining the data for these 3 genetics, immune profiling, and drug screening, right? We are able to use the data for precision medicine services, and in terms of our drug development and clinical trial. So the benefit and the advantages for our AVATAScan drug screening technology. So basically, we have a validated optimal drug suggestion for our cancer patients using their own patient-derived stem cells. And this has been proven in clinical feasibility study in various publications. The turnaround time for our sample processing is really fast at 14 days, which allows for treatment within a clinical relevant time frame. And we know that this is really important in terms of cancer, right, where the tumor will evolve over time. And our technology is applicable for most cancer types. And right now, we have one of the largest reference database of more than 1,600 drug response data. So I just want to briefly touch on the precision medicine landscape globally, basically. So the global precision medicine market, right, is increasing at an estimated 11% compound annual growth rate from 2020 to 2026. And the market size, right, would increase from 7 billion in 2019 to an estimated 119 billion in 2026. This is almost double the increase. And in terms of cancer incidence, where we are focusing on, right, let's look at Asia, for example, which has the highest cancer incidence globally. It's estimated to increase from 8.75 million cancer cases in 2018 all the way to 14.46 million cases in 2040. This is based on our WHO data, right? So, and over here, in terms of drug development, drug development is really a tedious process, taking about 10 to 15 years and about $2.6 billion to develop a drug. Yeah. So typically, pharmaceutical company actually spends about $150 billion in R&D, and which is about 70% of the revenue spent on R&D. And these are really focused in phase 3 clinical trials. So with our AVATAR scan, right, drug screening technology, we hope to reduce the time and the cost of drug development, and also to help in the treatment of cancer globally. And of course, last but not least, we hope to collaborate in two big areas. One is, of course, to reach out to oncologists and hospitals, right, in terms of precision medicine services that we have. And of course, the other big area is drug development and clinical trial with pharmaceutical company and research institutions. Yep. So that's all about AVATAMED, and happy to looking forward to the panel discussion later. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that introduction to AVATAMED. We haven't talked about your COVID-19 response, but I think we'll do that in the discussion on the discussion side.
Yes, I'm
so next up,
later.
Yeah, thanks, Angul. Next up, we have Zhunan. Zhunan, would you like to share your slides and talk a little about Breathonix?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mayank. Hi, very happy to introduce Breathonix to everyone here. So Breathonix is a spin-off company from US that develops ultrasensitive breast lasers for disease detection. With our breast test, the results are available within 60 seconds on site. So we have successfully detected COVID-19 early stage lung cancer as well as tuberculosis patients through their breast samples. Now we are working to scale up our breast laser production as well as to broaden our test menus. So Breathonix technology was actually built upon research done 6 years of research in the US, and our key technology includes the high precision sampling technology as well as the software which predicts the results based on the data that we have collected from the clinical studies. So our sampling device as well as the collection kits allows the turnaround time for our breast test to be less than 1 minute, which is the fastest among our competitors. And also the initial clinical trials for COVID-19 and lung cancer have showed more than 90% and 80% accuracy respectively. So we also have our proprietary software, which enables healthcare providers or authorities to retrieve the results. So this is our current breast VOC testing system. So VOC stands for volatile organic compounds, which are the molecules that we are detecting in the breast. So to use this system, the user will just need to breathe through a one-way disposable mouthpiece into our sampling device, which is connected to our instrument that measures the molecules in the breast in real time. And the results will be uploaded to our software, and the results produced on site in less than 60 seconds. We are also developing the next generation of breast laser solutions, which include a desktop breast test system and as well as a portable sensor-based point-of-care breast laser. So our vision is to develop a portable sensor system that can be used for breast test for home use. So our current focus is on COVID-19 detection. So we are currently collaborating with National Center of Infectious Disease here in Singapore on a clinical trial for COVID-19. And our initial analysis on 180 patients have shown a sensitivity of 93 and the specificity of 95% on COVID-19. So we have since expanded the clinical trial into 3 sites, and the multi-center validation trials are currently ongoing, and we are targeting to get HSA approval in Q1 next year and FDA and CE approval subsequently. So the market potential for the COVID-19 breast test is huge. So we are positioning our breast test as a mass screening test at major checkpoints such as airports or land borders or sea borders where you need to screen a large population in a very short time. And we are also exploring the potential to establish an immunity passport through our rapid breast test for future cross-border or international traveling. So beyond COVID, we are also building a pandemic surveillance system where we can monitor the residents on a regular basis for a range of infectious disease and prepare for the next potential pandemic. So beyond COVID-19, we also have clinical trial pipelines for a range of other diseases, including lung cancer, tuberculosis, nasopharyngeal cancer, as well as obstructive sleep apnea. So our company was funded by a team of researchers and scientists from NUS Nanoscience and Nanotechnology Institute. So myself, I did my PhD on breast analysis for the early detection of lung cancer, and my co-founder, Prof. Venkatesam, was the scientist and my PhD advisor for this project. And we also have Mr. Dufan and Wayne, who are alumni from NUS, and they are currently focusing on the business aspects. So here are some of the attractions. Last year, we participated in the slingshot competition, and we was a winner for the MedTech sector. And we are very honored to host the visit of Minister of Transport, Mr. Ong Yun Kang, in our office earlier this year. Yeah, we are also supported by NUS GRIP program as well as Jumpstart program. So that's a brief introduction about us, and I welcome you to get in touch with me if you are interested, and look forward to the panel discussion later.
Excellent. Okay, so thanks Zhunan for that inspiring presentation. A lot of inspiration there. Also thanks to the other panelists. So may I invite all the panelists back to come on screen, and then maybe we have a little bit of a discussion on what has this year been and how they have responded to COVID-19. So thanks all for presenting. I noticed a common theme in all the presentations. Except for Boon, all of you mentioned how you're responding to COVID-19. I mean, in case of Zhunan, you actually have repurposed your technology for this particular pandemic. J&J is a big MedTech company and obviously has other elements in terms of pharmaceuticals and consumer health as well. So a lot of responses coming out from all those different entities. And Prof, in terms of Capere, also, diversifying with new products such as masks for the COVID-19 and the PCR kits for COVID-19. So first question to Hong Boon, how is AVATAMED, responding to COVID-19?
So for AVATAMED, right, yes, we have also taken opportunity, right, in COVID-19, right, to actually take the opportunity to actually distribute some of the COVID-19 related solutions. Yeah. So due to our close ties with Korea, right, basically we have set up a subsidiary with Avata Healthcare to distribute Korea manufacture COVID-19 solutions. Yeah, one such example is a mobile negative pressure isolation room that can act as a mobile clinic. Yeah. So this mobile clinic, right, can be deployed to more remote areas in other countries where they can set up the mobile clinic as a diagnostic center or treatment center for COVID-19. Yeah. So other other solutions include like mobile CT scanner, which can detect a lung infection, which is really important for COVID-19, and of course many other COVID-19 diagnostic test kits. Yeah. Another area, right, I wish to highlight is that our US partner, right, is working on has developed actually a community pathogen surveillance solution, which they call the GeoScan. The GeoScan, right, really uses the RNA sequencing data of individuals and even wastewater materials, right, to detect pathogen spread in the community. So for this opportunity, right, we are helping them to look for collaboration and opportunities in Asia, yeah, to basically to offer these solutions. Yeah. So that's our response to COVID-19. Yeah, and pivot
Excellent.
to such solutions. Thank you.
Yeah, so like Peter mentioned earlier, it's a silver lining. Everybody has been responding positively, but I also need to highlight some of the other effects of COVID-19. I mean, as we work with young companies, these young companies are building up their QMS and doing the regulatory work and trying to get in contact with physicians and patients. That has been a challenge for some of our young companies, at least at NUS. So maybe I asked, Zhunan and Prof, as young small companies, have you had any challenges in terms of regulatory approvals and clinical, access to physicians or patients? Especially Zhunan, you have been working at NCID in Singapore. So have you encountered any challenges in terms of getting access to these regulators or the clinicians or the patients?
Actually, I was lucky enough because NCID is quite open to research. So when we approached them and we introduced our technology to them, they are actually very open to research collaboration, and we moved on to the clinical trial very quickly, actually. In fact, because of COVID-19, all the IRB approval process, they have a fast track for that. So we were able to get the IRB approval within 1 month, which is the fastest I have ever gotten for all my IRB applications. Usually it will take minimum 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you've been lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
And Prof, what has been your interactions with regulators or clinicians or patients? Any impediments?
Well, in the space of diagnostics, the regulators are rightfully conservative and concerned, so they take their time, and we don't rush them. But because we try and partner with bigger established companies, so that process is slightly easier. The other area in terms of access to physicians through our own networks, that's not so difficult for us.
Excellent. So Peter, turning towards you, as a big company, you also have a responsibility to maintain supply chains and maintain availability of products across the value chain. And that means talking to suppliers, but also passing on materials to distributors and to other downstream value providers. So has that affected any, the supply chains, have they been affected, especially in the Asia Pacific region, with China as a manufacturing hub, or with other centers where J&J does its manufacturing? Has there been any challenges you have heard of, or is it all pretty good?
Well, first of all, just the ability for companies like ourselves and distributors that we work with, we've really just been so impressed about, when you have a crisis, everybody just gets on with it and laser focus on making sure that the healthcare professionals have the right equipment and what they need at the right time, and we can make the best possibility for the patients as well. So just the amount of effort that have people and have come together on that. Certainly, I would say where there's been strict lockdowns, as I mentioned before, we've had a number of employees, working with governments to make sure that we can get the right products there at the right time when it's been difficult to be outside homes and things like that in certain parts of Asia Pacific. But again, governments have been fantastic in their support for that, knowing that this is essential services that we need to get these products to the hospitals. So thankfully, just the communication has significantly increased, and there hasn't been significant issues in that supply chain side, which has been fantastic, and hats off to that. And to be honest, it's probably a learning going forward, right? If we can do it in a pandemic, let's continue to do it. Continue those communication going forward, because certainly I think everyone's learned how to work more efficiently in that area.
Excellent. And then in terms of, just staying on with you, then in terms of procedure volumes, actually, because hospitals have been sort of repurposed to work as COVID-19 centers, and then the amount of patients that come for elective procedures might have also decreased because of just the circuit breaker and lockdowns. Has that situation improved since, as various places started opening up, and has electives and other emergency procedures resumed? Have you heard anything from the ground on that aspect?
Again, it's been very impressive in terms of the return to elective surgery in a number of countries globally, to be honest. Certainly earlier in the year, you're right, a number of, to your point, elective surgeries were stopped to enable more rooms and spaces for COVID patients and the like. And that had an impact right across MedTech and medical devices. But certainly we have seen a huge return to that, which has been great to see. And with elective surgeries starting up again, which has been really good to see. So we've certainly had some strong quarters, which is great.
Excellent. So I think the response has been very positive in terms of doing. I know for a fact that the EU MDR was pushed back by 1 year, so it was supposed to be implemented this year, and now companies have to respond by next year. But there has been no change to the IVDR pathway. Has that impacted any of you? I know, Boon, have you been pursuing the IVDR pathway for a CE mark in the EU? Is that on your radar, or for Prof? Any of those things are on your radar? Zhunan, I don't know if you have pursued that as well. So is IVDR probably not for you, but MDR certainly applies to you. So has anybody heard anything on that? Boon, I think
No.
you are the probably closest to IVDRs.
No, I think for us, right, at the moment we are not looking at IVD or such kind of regulate such thing. Yeah. So I have no idea about this situation yet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it has been certainly been a challenge for a lot of companies. But the other side of small companies is getting grant funding and getting support from the various agencies. Has that been a challenge? Zhunan, I know you have been trying to get some grant funding. Have you seen that the response times have decreased, or have they actually become quicker in terms of access to grant funding, such as those in Singapore?
Yeah, I think generally for any products or solutions related to COVID-19, the funding process has been accelerated across all the organizations.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I can just say from the NUS point of view, we have a couple of grant systems now available for those listening in who might want to access some of these grant fundings. We have a special grant now available for COVID-19. So do approach us in case you need some funding. But I also know that agencies like Enterprise Singapore have doubled up efforts to support companies, not just for COVID-19 in general as well, to make sure those SMEs and those startups which are affected by COVID-19 have some support layer available to those. The other thing I wanted to check with you was, have you been involved in any major conferences? I know Switch has gone online and has sort of been a lot of digital and Zoom fatigue that has set in. Have you guys experienced that in your conferences, so both from the research point of view as well as the commercial point of view? There are some research educational conferences, but there are others which are more commercial conferences. So as a person who constantly looks out at the interface of both of these research/commercial entities, Peter, you would have experienced a lot of these conferences going digital. What has been your takeaway on these digitized conferences in our space?
Yeah, who would have thought? I was at a JP Morgan healthcare conference in San Francisco in January, and then suddenly the world changed. But But look, to be honest, I've been really impressed, like really impressed. Again, the ability for some of these major companies, I mean, take AVATAMED, which happens each year in October down at Suntech, that was a well-run event and some very engaging speakers, streaming where you wanted to go, 1, 2 or 3 kind of areas in getting to choose. It was just well run. So from the commercial events, the industry events that I've been a part of, that has been great, and even some of the startup competitions, the ability to do pitches online and for judges to give their feedback, and then move to breakout rooms to give some mentoring, all those types of things. It has worked, I think, as seamlessly as you could. Although, to be honest, personally, I do miss the interaction face-to-face in a room, and actually I look forward to getting back to that when we can. But it's been a great effort. Yeah.
Excellent. And for other people in the panel, so Hong Boon and Prof, have you guys experienced similar feedback from conferences?
Maybe I'll just add something related to conferences and using online tools, right? So for one example is that in Austria, right, we are partnering with one lab, right, to set up our partner lab in Austria, and we are transferring our technology and training them up on the job screening platform. But of course, the traditional way of training, right, is really for them to fly over into the country, get trained for a month or so, and they'll get the hang of it, right? But right now, it's impossible to sort of do this kind of thing, right? Flying around, yeah. So we have to depend on Zoom training, which extended months of Zoom trainings, and also before the face-to-face and hands-on, right? It has become very difficult, and also leads to a long delay in them having to get on the job screening system in their country. Yeah. So these are just some problems that we face at the moment, but we still have to work around this problem to solve to get the business going in a sense. Yeah.
Prof?
I think the velocity of occurrences is magnified, right? So we're spoiled for choice, but some of the problems are coordinating time zones. All right, so many times we are the receiving end, so we will have to be past midnight. So that's a challenge sometimes. But other than that, I think, yeah, it's a new experience. I'm not sure if more of our conferences will say, in the future would be delivered virtually rather than having to be there, to give our presentations.
Yeah, I think that is going to be the norm in the future. You'll always have a digital alternative. You can fly in, you can also attend in, but there's a digital alternative available. But something which Peter brought up, which is the missing element of human interaction, especially in the business we are in. Our business is selling science. Our business is working with people to make them understand science, and that requires a personal engagement, personal interaction. So Zhunan, for you who has been trying to get this product positioned for COVID-19, how have you worked with engaging with potential partners, potential collaborators, doing it all online? Or have you been lucky to have interacted with some of them physically as well?
And yes, I would say both. So we started off by doing a clinical validation here locally in Singapore. So we are lucky enough to have strong support from the local healthcare institutions as well as the Ministry of Health. So for that part, we are able to do a physical face-to-face interaction on daily basis. But as we are developing our product further down the line, we are actually meeting potential partners or distributors or all around the world on Zoom or virtually on. And I think this has made it more accessible, and we can easily get connected to people from the other side of the globe, and people are more used to this kind of meetings as compared to pre-COVID. pre-COVID, although we have Skype, but I think people are not so used to virtual meetings.
Yeah. No, but back to Hongboon, while Zhunan is at an early stage of talking to partners, you need to evaluate partners, you need to do your diligence. So you need to go down to their offices, see the warehouses, see that they have all the approvals, see that they have the biosafety regulations or whatever regulatory or compliant elements are needed. How do you do that from your business point of view? Like the Austria engagement you mentioned just now, how would you due diligence that from Singapore?
In that example, right, is right now we are at the stage of training. So hopefully when the pandemic is more stable, not more stable, or it has become lesser, right, next year, then we would still carry on. We still have to have a cross interaction. Basically, we flying over to check on their system and then flying over to check on our system. But besides that, right, what we are doing is that we are trying to run concurrent testing at both labs, right, at their end and at our end, right, to check the concordance of the data that's being generated. Yeah, in this sense. Yeah. Just now you mentioned about face-to-face meeting, right? So yeah, we do experience a problem, especially for example in Malaysia, right? Just last month I just went down to KL to meet up with some business partner, right? So basically in terms of operation and cost, right, of business, right, just from that trip itself, right, if you want face-to-face meeting now, right, you have to do 3 swab tests just to get out of the country and coming back to the country. So and the cost for the 3 swabs, right, is about $450. Yeah. So for a startup company, this is quite a significant increase in the business cost. Just to have a face-to-face interaction with your business partner. And for example, for Malaysian doctors, right? If we can meet online, of course, but if you tell them to meet online, they will just tell you to wait for the pandemic to be over, then we discuss things, right? Yeah. So these are challenges that we have to face and get used to. Yeah.
Excellent. Peter, we had just got news that the UK has sort of approved the use of the Pfizer vaccine.
I saw that.
Yeah. How do you think J&J's own vaccine will perform with 2 of these vaccines already approved? Do you have any view on the J&J vaccine?
Well, it's in phase 3 trials at the moment, so I am not that close to it to be able to give a commentary on it. So I think I'll pass on that one. But you know, it's exciting times. We're going to need clearly more than one vaccine out there. So I'm very hopeful, like we all are. So any news of vaccines are good news in regards to good performance. So
yeah, excellent. I mean, it's a high point for us to see finally a vaccine being approved by a regulatory agency. But you mentioned earlier about virtual deal execution, which is sort of a more it's deeper than just talking. It's actual money actually going into companies. How do you do that in a virtual environment? You know, you still need some level of physical diligence, and how do you make that happen?
No, it's a really good question, Mayank. And look, if you asked me before the pandemic to say that, you know, in Q3, 66% of deals would be done virtually, I'd laugh and say how can that be? But again, people have found creative ways to do that, and due diligence being one of them. And I've had to do that myself in terms of how do we engage and do a proper diligence from quality to commercial diligence to financial diligence without being present in their offices, and also just building relationships right. So, and I think that's probably one thing in Asia Pacific that face to face, you know, across a dinner table, across a boardroom, has been traditionally very important to do. And I think we're challenging some of those norms because we've had to, because of the pandemic. And I think I think, to be honest, I think it actually is a bit of an eye-opener in terms of how much we can get done virtually versus not having to be on a plane every second week and doing that. So I think we'll see a continuation of virtual interaction where it can be. I think there is an element, as I mentioned before, for that kind of in the room engagement, and that's important. But I think there's, through innovation and around virtual deal making, I think a lot of that is here to stay.
So with that, with that comment that actually deal making has become more virtual, would that mean the number of deals being processed in general, in the number of quantity of deals, would increase, or would that mean a lower cost of deal making for early stage companies? Do you anticipate any change in the quantity of deals?
I think it's a factor, right? So in all things being equal, yes, you'd say it would. You can get through more deals. There's more productivity and more efficiency going on. But at the same time, there are other things happening as well, such as the economy and where that is, how much cash is in systems, confidence in the market, and which, all play other roles and factors as well. But certainly you can streamline a number of things doing being virtual. And I think if you can get more productivity out of BD people in corporate world, I think that's a good thing.
Excellent. I've got somebody at the door. But just coming back to the efficiency and productivity increasing, MedTech and healthcare in general has got the right support at the moment. Would you agree with that statement? Just because of the pandemic, more people and more governments have become more sensitive to public health and healthcare in general. People themselves have become more conscious of the environment and they're working in, especially people engaged as consumers, not as patients, but as day-to-day people, at a public health level. Would you, for example, Prof, given that you have been involved in the masks and getting them approved through HSA, have you seen a change in the way people have started taking care of their health and being more proactive in terms of looking after their healthcare?
Definitely, because people have great interest, even in the diagnostic space. So everybody's interested in a rapid test, right? But the challenge today for us is that as the caseload comes down, right, we may not have enough material to evaluate the new modalities coming out, so that the detail that we can give, right, becomes a bit compromised there. So what we have to then do is to reach out to our regional contacts to say, look, can we collaborate and do something together? And so that's how we are trying to position ourselves as well.
Zhunan, you would be facing this dilemma as well. You're developing a test for COVID-19, but the number of COVID-19 patients is falling. I mean, it's fortunate for Singapore and for other places, but you would need positive patients to actually determine how good your test is working. So how are you managing that at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a happy problem that we don't have enough COVID patients to test here. So our strategy is to go to the countries where there are more COVID patients. Yeah, excellent. So we are exploring partners overseas to do a larger scale trials.
Excellent. I think that summarizes a lot of things that are happening there. You're taking the crisis as an opportunity and using that. So it's a saying, never waste a good crisis. That's a leadership saying. But in today's context, I think talking to all the panelists, I got the sense that there is generally a sense of hope in terms of utilizing the opportunity. I know 2021 is almost here and everybody has big hopes for 2021. But at the same time, I think we have to do whatever we can to sort of support the initiative, the war against COVID-19. And from a clinician's point of view, I can tell you, while it is unfortunate that we had COVID-19, but it has certainly increased the focus of the general public towards healthcare, and the governments are waking up. I come from a country where healthcare is not really top of the mind, but this has really raised the expectations for citizens to demand good healthcare from governments, and this, I think, this demand will have effect on the system throughout. So I'm hoping that the future 2021 and beyond, we will be better prepared for pandemics like COVID-19, and we'll come out stronger out of this pandemic. So with that, I'd like to ask a last final question to all of you. How do you see the situations changing in the next 5-10 years with regards to your specific sector? So for example, let me go first to the big companies, for Johnson & Johnson and other big companies, your sector as a whole. How do you think COVID-19 would change what is happening? Things are already in motion, so maybe you can paint a picture for us what would happen in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I think is just accelerated a number of things. So there's a number of things in work. The move from traditional medical devices with digitization, that was on its way. But I mean, I think we've just cut it short by 10 years. I just think there is a significant ramp up that has happened. So I think, that is one thing. So we are there very much in the digitization path. Our consumers, our healthcare professionals are ready for it. And you're seeing great technologies here just being presented today of, digital being used in that effort. So I think that is certainly that important point. I also feel though that we've proven that we can do it this year, and everything from producing vaccines when this time last year we didn't even know that this pandemic existed. So therefore there's an element of we can actually innovate really quickly and really fast and rapidly. And so my hope is that not only big tech, but small tech, we can actually learn some of the things that we've done this year and really take that on board, and that become our norm in terms of how we operate. And that doesn't mean we need to make sure that the right steps are in place clearly to ensure the safety and efficacy for our patients. But at the same time, there are things that we can do. I think that we've learned that agility, that mindset, that we can actually increase faster. So, it's an exciting time, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years in MedTech. We're going to move more and more to digital. We've certainly got robotics coming, but it's far beyond that in terms of the digital ecosystem and what that can do, not only to diagnose, not only to help surgeons make better decision-making in the OR, but ultimately also to prevent. And that's, a clear, important need as well. So exciting times. Excellent.
So moving on to some of the smaller companies. So Hong Boon, from a precision medicine and IVD diagnostics sector space, what do you think are some of the bigger things that we can expect in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, okay, 10 years is a short time for a startup company, definitely. Right. And also I want to also add on to what Peter was mentioning about the digitalization, right? So in the precision medicine area, right, well, we always hope for people, like for example, people will have their own health records, their genetic sequences, their drug sensitivity data, stored in secure system or devices somewhere where doctors can access the data when treatment is needed on the individual. So and for treatment itself, right? Of course, my hope is that it won't be any when you are sick, right? You are not getting generic drug prescription anymore, but it's personalized in the type of medicine and dosage to you based on your health data, right? So that's precision medicine in short, personalizing your treatment based on the data that is specific to you, right?
Yeah.
But just a word of caution over here in terms of precision medicine, right? The same promise, right, was also made when genetics came into the biomedical space 17 years ago, right? But right now we still do not have precision medicine at our doorstep yet, you see. So, but I believe, and I'm hopeful that in 10 years' time, right, we can actually achieve with the current exponential growth in technology, and but still a lot, I think, depends on the regulatory landscape and also the trust and belief in the world has in MedTech and also precision medicine. Yeah, that's my take on format industry.
Excellent, excellent. Good point there on the regulatory side. We saw a lot of emergency use authorizations in the US, and then we saw a lot of activity from the European agencies as well, in sort of accelerating the approval pathway, or actually improving access, at least at a provisional level first, and then gradually looking at how they can be developed. So, Prof, from a medical device perspective, such as for Capere, what do you think are some of the bigger things that you can expect in the next 5 to 10 years, just because of COVID-19?
Not so much device from our perspective, because the number of cases for that space, the hand device is limited. But the diagnostic space, I think, is really very exciting, and in fact, for diagnostics, the specificity of the test, right, for COVID is remarkable, right? In no other sphere of infectious disease is the specificity so good. Almost all the tests today is better than 99%. You don't see that in HIV, you don't see that in hepatitis or TB or other things. So leveraging on that, I'm confident that we will be able to look forward to much better diagnostic test performance in the years to come. And aside from the early hiccup on the not so great antibody tests, but today the antibody tests are quite good. Quite good.
Yeah, and I think the old system of developing a lab developed tests and LDT first, and then taking it on to bigger samples, and I think in a way it mirrors the software development cycle of doing an agile development. So constantly looking back at the results and saying, what can we do better to improve this? How can we make it repeatable? How can we make it more reliable? I think that's the big learning from the diagnostic space, at least from what we have seen from the NUS side. Zhunan, for you, what do you think will happen for the VOC space, specifically for the VOC space? You have a bunch of competitors looking at this area. You yourself are pretty ahead in the game as well. How do you think VOCs will evolve over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, the next big thing in VOC space or breast VOC test space, I'm hoping is that we could see more breast tests approved and available in the market. So COVID-19 has actually accelerated the development of a breast test for disease detection largely, and in the next in the past few months, we have seen more than five new players in the small space that we are in. So I'm really hoping that in the next 5 years, we can see more and more breast tests for disease detection that's being approved. And I also think that there will be an increased demand in rapid or point of care tests, because COVID has highlighted the importance and also the urgent need for a point of care testing that can produce the results immediately so that we can make informed management decisions.
Excellent. I hope Singapore can take this leadership in the breath developed test space. If with your support and with your efforts, with Breathonix taking the lead in this, I think we will be able to do something. But I look forward to the first regulatory approval for a breath test. We know some of them are playing at the moment, so let's see when that comes around. talking of regulatory approvals, I think the UK's approval for the Pfizer vaccine is the news of the day. I think we will see more of them coming, and that is one of the auspicious things we can talk about, at least for this year. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for your time today. Excellent discussion. I think I learned a lot from your experiences and from your expertise. And I look forward to engaging with you further. And if I don't meet you by the end of the year, I'd like to wish you a very happy new year. And we hope you have a good time with your family. It's been very daunting year. We have achieved quite a bit, but I think there's more to come. And here's to wishing you all a good, healthy 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Keep safe.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.